was 16 when it happened. The night my school went into a lockdown that wasn't supposed to be real, wasn't supposed to last more than a few minutes, wasn't supposed to feel like the end of the world pressing its cold breath against my neck. It started on a Thursday evening in late winter, when the sun died early and left the sky hanging like a torn black sheet over the parking lot. I stayed after school for a biology project with two classmates who bailed at the last minute, leaving me to gather the materials alone inside the nearly empty building. Our school, Hollow Creek High, was already creepy during the day, with its long, echoing hallways, flickering tube lights, and a ventilation system that moaned like someone exhaling painfully through cracked ribs. At night, it was worse. Every shadow felt like it had weight. Every corner seemed to lean just slightly inward, as if the building itself wanted to listen to your footsteps. I remember walking down the science wing hallway with a stack of lab trays in my hands, hearing the metallic clatter of something dropping far behind me, then spinning around only to find the corridor completely still, silent, and dead. I tried to shrug it off. Old buildings make noises, I told myself, but something in me already knew that wasn't an ordinary sound. It had rhythm, intention, like fingers tapping. I finished packing up the project supplies and began heading toward the exit when the PA system cracked alive with a harsh screech, making me flinch so hard I dropped the papers in my arms. Then came the announcement, a voice I didn't recognize. Not our principal, not our vice principal, not any staff member I'd ever heard before. It was low, grainy, distorted like someone speaking with a broken jaw. Lockdown. This is a full lockdown. Find a room. Hide. Do not make noise. Do not move. Do not look into the hallways. I froze. It didn't sound like a drill. It didn't sound like anything human. The phrase, "do not look into the hallways," settled into my chest like a nail driven straight between my ribs. My instinct told me to run, to bolt out the door, but when I pushed the exit bar, the door didn't budge. It was sealed, locked from the outside. Every external door in the building was suddenly unresponsive, as if someone had fused the metal from the other side. When I stepped back, the PA crackled again. Lockdown. Hide. It's already inside. That voice, wrong, trembling with a wet rasp, felt like it was trying not to laugh. I didn't want to find a room. I didn't want to be trapped, but the echo of footsteps on the far end of the hallway made the decision for me. Slow, dragging footsteps. Something wasn't running toward me. It was strolling calmly, confidently, like it already knew exactly where I was. I ducked into the nearest classroom and locked the door, lowering the blinds on the window panel. My breathing was sharp, too loud, so I crouched under the teacher's desk and covered my mouth with both hands. A few seconds later, the footsteps reached the doorway. They stopped. Not a creak, not a shuffle, just stillness, like whatever stood outside was listening with its ear pressed to the other side of the door. There was clicking next, soft at first, then harder, like nails. Not fingernails, not metal, something thicker, heavier. It clicked along the door frame, tracing it almost lovingly. I squeezed my eyes shut, praying it would go away, but then the handle began to turn. Slow, deliberate. Once, twice, then a long, deep inhale, like something smelling through the crack beneath the door. Whatever was outside let out a sound, a low, gargled whisper that might have been a word, stretched and twisted, impossible to understand. Then the footsteps moved away. But this wasn't safer. It was worse, because now I didn't know where it was. And the PA kept repeating every few minutes, each time sounding more warped, more strained, as if the voice delivering it was being dragged across concrete while speaking. Lockdown, lockdown, stay hidden, it's watching. Minutes felt like hours, and with every passing second, the building seemed to sink deeper into unnatural silence. No humming lights, no whirring ventilation, no distant cars. Nothing. Like the world outside had been swallowed whole. At some point, the classroom lights dimmed, not flickering, just fading as though something was sucking the power out of the wires. In the near darkness, my eyes adjusted just enough to see movement. Small vibrations traveling across the tile floor as if something heavy was moving down the hallway again. I held my breath until spots danced in front of my eyes, but the vibrations didn't stop. They grew stronger, closer, more aggressive, until it felt like something huge was passing by the room. Then silence again, but the kind of silence that felt intentional, like a predator pausing to listen for prey. I didn't dare move, even as my legs cramped and my throat burned for air. My phone buzzed once, just a vibration that felt like a bomb going off in my pocket. I grabbed it desperately. The screen showed a notification. One new message, unknown number. My heart climbed into my throat as I opened it. The message said, "I see you." Except it wasn't text. It was a live photo. And when I held the screen, the image moved just an inch. It was a picture of the classroom I was hiding in, taken from the hallway window, through the blinds. And in the photo, beneath the shadow of the teacher's desk, was the top of my head. I don't know how long I sat frozen with that photo burning into my eyes. My first instinct was that someone was messing with me, some sick joke from another student still on campus. But the more I replayed the message, the more I noticed details that made my skin collapse into goosebumps. The angle of the photo was slightly wrong for any human. Too high, like it had been taken from a vantage point near the ceiling. And the camera flash didn't reflect off the window blinds. Instead, it seemed to shine from behind them, as if something had been creeping between the slats, impossibly thin, watching me. My hand shook so violently, I almost dropped the phone. Then another vibration. Another message. A second live photo. This one was darker, blurrier, like it was taken mid-movement. It showed the same classroom, but the desk I hid under was now empty. In the photo, the floor was visible. No me. No sado. As if I wasn't there anymore. As if I'd already been taken. A cold pressure built behind my eyes as the PA system screeched again, louder, glitching like someone tearing metal apart with their teeth. The voice came through, barely human now, distorted, layered like multiple throats speaking at once. It knows where you are. Do not run. Do not scream. Do not turn around. That last instruction hit me like an electric shock, because right as the voice said do not turn around, I felt warm air brush against the back of my neck. Slow, steady breathing. Something was behind me, inches away. I clamped a hand over my mouth, forcing myself not to scream as tears blur my vision. The breathing grew heavier, wetter, as though whatever hovered behind me was confused, curious, trying to understand why I was still there. I felt something lightly touch my hair. Not a hand, not fingers. Something thin, jointed, bending in unnatural angles. Something that clicked quietly when it moved. I wanted to faint. I wanted to die. Anything to escape feeling that thing exploring the shape of my skull, like it was learning what a human head was supposed to feel like. Then, just as suddenly it withdrew, the air behind me went cold. The presence vanished, and the PA system cut off with a final choking gargle. Then silence. Absolute, crushing silence. I waited. 10 minutes. 20. Maybe an hour. Then the hallway lights flickered back to life, weak, trembling, but alive. I finally crawled out from under the desk, my entire body shaking so badly I had to grip the edge just to stand. I knew I had to get out. Now, even if the doors were locked before, maybe the system had reset. Maybe whatever hunted me was gone. I inched toward the classroom door and peered through the blinds. The hallway looked empty. But something was wrong. The security cameras along the ceiling, all 8 of them, were turned downward, pointed at the floor as if something had twisted them by hand. Slowly, forcefully, I slipped out of the room and walked toward the exit, each step feeling like it echoed too loudly. Halfway down the hall, my phone buzzed again. I didn't want to look, but my curiosity overpowered my fear. The new message wasn't a picture this time. It was a video, and the thumbnail made my blood freeze. It showed the empty hallway, recorded from the security camera's point of view, before it had been bent downward. I hit play. The footage was grainy, black and white, time-stamped only 5 minutes earlier. I saw myself leaving the classroom, the hallway empty behind me. But after a few seconds, something slid into view from the far corner. Not walking, not crawling, sliding, like a massive shape made of joints and limbs moving without friction. It was tall, too tall, its head nearly brushing the ceiling. Its limbs were long and thin and bent backward, like a spider rearranged to mimic the shape of something vaguely human. It moved with slow, deliberate grace, its body contorting silently as it followed me down the hallway, stopping just inches behind me every time I paused. Watching, hovering. I felt sick. I felt cold. And suddenly I felt watched. The video ended with the creature lifting one long arm and placing it over the camera, almost gently, before the footage cut to black. The air around me grew heavy. Someone whispered behind me. Not a voice, not a breath, a scrape, like bone dragging softly across tile. I didn't turn around. I couldn't, because then my phone buzzed one last time. One final message. A live photo. When it played, I heard it before I saw it, breathing right behind me. And in the split-second image, illuminated by the faint hallway light, I saw the reflection of something standing inches from my spine, taller than any person, limbs bending like broken coat hangers, its head tilting with a hunger so ancient it felt impossible. My knees buckled. The creature leaned forward, close enough that I felt it exhale against my ear. And the PA system crackled to life one last time, with a single whispered word. Run. I did. I don't remember how I got out. I don't remember how the doors opened. I just remember sprinting into the night, cold air burning my lungs, not stopping until the school was a speck behind me. No one believed what happened. Cameras were broken. Security logs were corrupted. They claimed it was a malfunction, an electrical surge, an overreaction to a false alarm. But that night still clings to me like a second skin. Because sometimes, late at night, my phone buzzes with messages from an unknown number. And every time I open them, I see the same thing. The empty hallways of Hollow Creek High. Except each photo is slightly closer. Closer and closer. Like something is slowly coming back. For me. I never liked detention. Not because I was scared of staying an extra hour after school, but because the building transformed into something unfamiliar the moment the last student left. During the day, Brookside Public School was loud, bright, full of echoing footsteps and chatter that made even the creepiest corners feel harmless. But after hours, when the janitors dragged their carts down the hallways and the sunlight dimmed into a dull orange haze, the school took on a different personality. Quiet, watching, as if the walls were listening and waiting for something to finally happen. On a windy Wednesday evening in late October, I found myself sitting in detention with only one other student, a silent girl named Alicia Harlow. She was the type of girl who never talked, never socialized, and never made a sound. She always kept her head low, hair covering most of her face, her movements stiff and calculated like she was forcing her body to imitate how humans behaved. No one really knew her. No one had ever seen her with parents, siblings, friends. But everyone agreed on one thing. Every time she walked by, the hallway temperature dropped and the lights flickered just once, almost like something inside the building reacted to her presence. Mr. Doyle, our detention supervisor, was running late that day. Normally he'd be there before us, half asleep in his swivel chair, clicking through emails or grading papers. But the classroom was empty when I arrived. Just Alicia sitting perfectly still at a desk in the corner, staring at the blackboard like she was waiting for it to speak. I tried ignoring her, sitting 3 rows away, but something about the way she sat, completely motionless, not even blinking, made it impossible to focus on the punishment assignment in front of me. Every few seconds I glanced up, expecting her to be looking at me, but she never moved. Not an inch. Eventually, the intercom beeped with a sharp burst of static, making me jump. Remain in your seats. Do not leave the classroom. Detention will begin shortly. It sounded like Mr. Doyle, but slower, deeper, as if someone was pulling the words out of him. The intercom shut off abruptly. I looked at Alicia. She was still staring forward, but now her hands were trembling slightly, like she knew something I didn't. After 20 more minutes of silence, I got fed up. The clock on the wall showed 4:37 p.m. Something was wrong. I stood, grabbed my backpack, and walked toward the door, ready to leave. Detention be damned. As my hand touched the door handle, Alicia finally moved. She didn't turn her head. She didn't lift her face. She just whispered in a thin, broken voice that sounded dry, fragile, like old paper tearing. He won't let you. I froze. Slowly, I turned around. She was still facing the board, but now her hair had shifted enough for me to see her cheek, and her skin looked wrong. Pale. Cracked. Like dried paint peeling off wood. I swallowed. What do you mean? I asked, my voice shaky. She didn't answer. She just raised her hand and pointed to the long vertical window in the classroom door. At first I didn't see anything, but then something shifted on the other side of the glass. A silhouette. Tall. Lean. Perfectly still. Like someone had been standing outside the entire time. I stepped back quickly. The figure didn't move. Didn't breathe. Didn't blink. It was just there, watching. I whispered, Mr. Doyle, hoping desperately it was him. But the silhouette was too tall, its shoulders too broad, its arms too long. And the shape of the head wasn't right. It looked stretched, distorted, like it had been pulled upward by invisible hooks. Suddenly the intercom crackled back on, louder this time, making the ceiling vibrate. The same voice spoke. Remain in your seats. Do not leave. He is in the hallway. My blood froze. This wasn't a drill. This wasn't detention. Something was happening. Something that the school knew about. Something the intercom was warning us about. But how? Why? The power flickered, the lights dimmed to an eerie amber glow, and the temperature dropped so fast I could see my breath drifting out in front of me. Alicia slowly turned her head toward me then. Her neck creaked like old wood. Her eyes, gray, foggy, glazed over like a blind person, fixed on mine. You shouldn't have gotten up, she whispered. He hears movement. He only looks when you move. Before I could respond, the doorknob twitched. Just once. Then again, harder, twisting like someone was trying to test whether it would open. I stumbled backward, bumping into a desk. The silhouette leaned closer to the window, so close its stretched face pressed against the glass, flattening like rubber. Something scraped down the length of the door. Metal screeching. Nails? Claws. I didn't want to know. The lights flickered violently as the intercom sputtered with static again. This time the voice was frantic, broken, almost terrified. Do not make a sound. He reacts to sound. Stay still. Do not breathe loudly. Then silence. The shadow outside the door lifted one long, thin arm and dragged its fingers slowly across the window, making a faint tapping noise that echoed through the classroom like drops of water in a cavern. Talp, talp, talp. Each tap grew louder, more impatient. Then the tapping suddenly stopped, and the handle began to turn. The door creaked inward only a fraction, but that tiny gap was enough to let in a cold draft that swept across the room like an invisible hand. I pressed myself behind a desk, my heart slamming painfully against my ribs, trying to swallow my breaths so they wouldn't give me away. Through the small opening, I saw something pale slip into the room. First a hand impossibly long, fingers sharp and pointed like cracked porcelain. They bent unnaturally as they gripped the edge of the door. Then came the arm, skin stretched so tightly it looked moments away from tearing. The creature that entered made no sound whatsoever. Not a step, not a breath, not a scrape. It simply glided, its limbs moving with a slow, elegant wrongness that made every instinct in my body scream. I ducked lower, forcing myself to stay still. Alicia, however, sat upright at her desk, watching it calmly, as though she had expected this moment for years. The creature's head twisted toward her. It didn't turn. Its neck twisted, bones cracking softly as it rotated far past what any human could endure. Its face was pale, empty, featureless, except for two hollow indentations where eyes might have been. They pulsed faintly, like dim lanterns behind a thick fog. It leaned toward Alicia, its body folding down like a collapsing puppet until its head was inches from hers. Alicia didn't flinch. She whispered something I couldn't hear, her voice no louder than a breath. The creature tilted its head, listening, curious. Then it reached one hand toward her chest, its fingertips trembling with eerie anticipation. I wanted to scream. I wanted to run. But her warning echoed through my mind. He reacts to movement. So I sat rigid, sweat pouring down my face, my muscles screaming from the tension. The creature tapped Alicia's sternum once, and the lights flickered violently. Then it dragged its fingers slowly across her collarbone, as if marking her for something. Suddenly, Alicia inhaled sharply, her back arching as though something cold had been plunged into her spine. A sound escaped her throat, a faint whimper, and the creature snapped its head toward her mouth like a dog hearing a treat bag crinkle. Its face opened, not like a mouth, not like a jaw. Its entire face split, peeling outward like wet paper, revealing a void of teeth that spiraled inward like a whirlpool of jagged bone. I covered my mouth with both hands. Alicia's scream was cut short, instantly, as the creature lashed on her head with impossible speed, dragging her upward off the ground. Her legs kicked violently, knocking over desks, scraping shoes against tile, but the creature didn't flinch. It pressed her body against the ceiling, its limbs tightening like ropes until her movements weakened, softened, stopped. The lights dimmed again. The intercom let out a low, static-filled moan, as if the entire school itself was grieving. The creature held Alicia's limp body for a moment more, then released her, letting her crumple onto the floor like a dropped puppet. I bit down on my knuckles to stop from crying out. My vision blurred with tears. The creature turned its cracked, split face toward the room, searching for more movement, more sound, more life. I stayed still. I stayed silent. But my breath, my tiny, shaking breath, must have betrayed me, because the creature's head snapped in my direction, its fingers twitching with sudden excitement. It glided forward, its limbs stretching, joints cracking softly as it crawled between desks, moving with unnatural precision. I squeezed behind the desk, my heart slamming so loudly that I felt it in my teeth. The creature was feet away now, inches. Its hands slid along the floor, searching blindly. Then the intercom burst to life, but not with warnings this time. A scream tore through the speakers. High, piercing, mechanical, so loud the entire ceiling shook. The creature jerked violently, its limbs convulsing as the sound disrupted something in its senses. It slammed its head into a desk, cracking the wood. Then again, and again, until the intercom suddenly cut out. Silence returned, and slowly, terrifyingly, the creature began to turn back toward me. But this time, it was different. Its body was shaking, its limbs twitching irregularly, like the sound had damaged it. It dragged one arm behind it now, broken or limp. The hollow indentations on its face flickered like dying embers. It reached for me one last time, its fingertips inches from my shoe, then suddenly froze. Completely. Its body stiffened, its limbs contorted in mid-motion like a statue collapsing into place. And then it simply fell, all at once, like a puppet whose strings had been cut. I didn't move for nearly 5 minutes. I couldn't. My legs refused to obey me. When I finally crawled out, I stepped over Alicia's body, cold, still, empty, and ran out of the classroom. The hallways were abandoned. Every light flickered. Every shadow stretched long across the floor as if reaching for me. I sprinted to the exit doors, expecting them to be locked like in story nightmares. But they pushed open easily. Too easily. The moment I stepped outside, the doors slammed shut behind me with deafening force. The next morning, the school was open. Normal. Kids laughed in the hallways. Teachers chatted by the office. And no one mentioned anything about detention. When I asked the front office about Alicia Harlow, the secretary frowned and said, "We don't have a student by that name." But I remember her. I remember her cracked skin, her dead white eyes, her last warning. And I remember the creature, broken, twisted, still lying in that classroom. Except when I walked past that room later that day. The desks were perfect. The floor was clean. There was no body, no blood, nothing. But one thing was left behind. On the chalkboard, written in a shaky, unnatural hand. Detention, 2 students. And underneath it, freshly written, 1 remaining.